Recording for us. Wonderful. I'm Christine Mahoney. Some of you all were my students, and some of you, this is the first time I'm getting to meet you. I have run social entrepreneurship at UVA for the past decade. I just stepped down this last year. I'm teaching in the social entrepreneurship program. And it's exciting to see so many School of Leadership and Public Policy students starting for-profits and nonprofits, and we're going to get to hear about them today. So rather than do long introductions to each of you, we're going to dive right in to hear about who our panelists are and the awesome organizations that they've started. So I want to kick it off with Cory Harris, who is the co-founder of Focus on the Field. And could you tell us a little bit about what Focus on the Field is and what inspired you to start it?
Yeah, thanks you guys for having me. So Focus on the Field, we operate as an outsourced admin for youth sports clubs, essentially handle all the back office administrative tasks that these poor parent volunteers have to do after a 9-to-5 job. So think of registration, uniform order, field reservations, the millions of parents' emails. We take that directly off their plate.
Awesome. Okay, next up we've got Simone. I believe it's Egwu. Am I pronouncing it right? Yes. Tell us all about how Simply Lead came to be and what does Simply Lead do?
Yeah, so Simply Lead is a social change consultancy. We focus specifically on anti-racism and helping education institutions, nonprofits, and some tech companies implement equity-oriented solutions to make their companies more equitable and less racist places. How it came to be, quite frankly, I was working in the nonprofit world trying to make these changes and had just had enough of other people telling me what to do, especially as a Black woman. Often the only way to escape sort of the microaggressions and underestimating that you experience in the office is to work for yourself. And here I am 2 years later.
Amazing, amazing. Mimi Wu is the co-founder and CEO of Myanmar Recycles. Can you tell us a little bit about what Myanmar Recycles does and what inspired you to start it?
Yeah, so, it's estimated that by 2050, we're going to have more plastic in the ocean. We're going to have more plastic than fish in the oceans, which is really quite scary. So since 2017, Myanmar Recycles has been providing an industrial scale solution to Myanmar's plastic pollution problem. And we're a collection and recycling company based in Myanmar that focuses on one of the hardest plastics in the world to collect and recycle, and that's plastic bags. So yeah, I've always been very impact driven. I previously worked in public policy and international development. And, I think businesses haven't historically been interested in solving pressing global challenges. But from my time when I was living in Uganda, previously to Myanmar, it really became really important to me to harness the private sector to solve societal and environmental problems. And I really wanted to set out with an impact-driven mission that utilized a financially sustainable model. I was inspired to tackle plastic pollution by two friends in Uganda, one who had pioneered plastic film recycling there, and another who had started a plastic manufacturing plant that is still providing permanent jobs to the community, I think 40 years later, And so I actually originally planned to open in Uganda, but I was encouraged to visit Myanmar in 2013. And on my first day in Yangon, I just followed a garbage truck basically, and it just kind of took off from there.
Wow, amazing, really inspiring, and a hard place to do work. Next up, we have Aaron James, founder and CEO of Change Agents, which I was so excited to read about, and we're going to have to get some students working for you down the line. Can you tell us what is Change Agents and what inspired you to start it?
Yes, awesome. Well, thank you guys for having me. First of all, I never actually imagined that I'd be doing something like this, so this is actually pretty fun for me. But Change Agents is a pro bono nonprofit consulting group. So basically what we do is just offer free services to nonprofits, but whether they be national nonprofits, international nonprofits, grassroots, kind of large scale. Basically what we do is just kind of offer free services wherever we can. I think really how it got started was me working with one of my friends around trying to see where we could just individually offer ourselves up as people to just help out nonprofits, particularly during the pandemic when, a lot of corporations obviously could have survived the pandemic, but nonprofits weren't afforded some of those same advantages, obviously. So it started with me working with one of my friends to find individual work for ourselves. But then I realized that there's probably a lot more like-minded people like myself who, after their day's work, and not whether kind of really demanding jobs, want to be able to give back in some way. So really just kind of started reaching out to other groups of people that I thought would be interested, and then that's kind of how it happened. So,
and that roster is impressive. I guess people are reaching out to you now to join your ranks.
well, yeah, what's really interesting is that kind of in our kind of growth, it's been difficult to have different people stay on in longer stints. But what's awesome is that people are always interested to hop in and hop out, and it's really just meant to be archetyped around people's schedules. So yeah, definitely, like you alluded to, definitely really interested in students who kind of can also be one of the kind of catalysts for people being like really young and really into the work that we do. So yeah, exactly.
Terrific. Next up, we've got Logan Pugh, who is the co-founder of Talic Teams. Can you tell us what inspired you to start it and what all do you do?
Yeah, necessity instead of inspiration. And what we do is work with startup founders, usually who have raised a bunch of cash, which is a hard and impressive thing to do. But of course, you send out the press release and then it's, okay, what do I actually do with that cash? And so startup recruiter by background, it's, okay, what are these next 20, 30 hires going to be? What kinds of systems do you have in place to do it? And like you, Aaron, well, unlike Mimi, who always had the entrepreneurial bug, I didn't, but the necessity is like you, Aaron, of in 2019, I spent it with my business partner hiring 50 people for a startup. And then of course, March 2020, the entire picture changes, and just being a little fed up with sort of being at the whims of a founder or being at the whims of the market of what if instead we retained some agency and chose our clients instead of taking orders, of course.
Okay, great. That's makes a ton of sense. And that work is so important. We know that like teams usually make or break a startup. So the more support they can get, the better. And next up, we have Rodrigo Gamboa, founder of El Barrio Foundation. Can you tell us what inspired you to found it, and what do you do?
Thank you, Christine. Well, I'm very happy to share this panel with these talented minds. The way the El Barrio Foundation promotes, helps teenagers to finish high school through boxing in dangerous neighborhoods of Mexico City. The way it started, I was co-producing, promoted Latin concerts in Manhattan. And then just as a hobby, I just started going to this boxing gym, just like to get this New Yorker vibe off my shoulders. So I realized that there were so many talented kids joining boxing, and they just couldn't keep going because they needed to get a job, or they just couldn't pursue their passion. At the same time, I was already dealing with all these sponsors to promote these concerts. So I was like, wait a minute, there might be an opportunity to promote the career of these amateur fighters through this sponsorship. And Mexican boxers are really well known worldwide. And then when I started getting more involved in this world of boxing, I was like, wait a minute, these are kids in the United States that don't have the opportunity. However, in Mexico, we're living this crisis of violence. So perhaps I can use this type of sponsors, this type of connections to help these kids, to save these kids from joining gangs or even cartels, instead of like giving them this free time after middle school, high school to just go and be in their neighborhoods. Maybe you just get them tired in the gym, push-ups, burpees, punching bags. And the idea is to make sure that they finish high school so they can pursue a college degree, or at least they can have a better job with a high school diploma, or if they are good at boxing, that they can just pursue a career in the world of boxing. And the reason the foundation is called El Barrio is because all this started in East Harlem, New York, which is also called El Barrio.
Wonderful. Awesome. When I spent time in Mexico City, I saw boxing is very big there, and MMA, like mixed martial arts. It's so very, very cool. So I want to hear a little bit about, because I think we probably have some people listening and some people that are going to listen, and maybe when they get off work and they have aspirations of being an entrepreneur. It's been pretty sexy. And obviously we see lots of entrepreneurs on the cover of like Fast Company magazine. What's the actual day-to-day like though? So I'm going to I'll throw it out to you if somebody wants to chime in, like what is the day-to-day life of a founder like? Or I can just start calling on people, like cold call.
I'm gonna usually putting out fires, I think is the biggest thing. And it's, yeah, I think just like you said, it's entrepreneurship has kind of this connotation of being really sexy, that you're going to make a lot of money. And that honestly couldn't be farther from the truth. I mean, I paid myself $250 per month for a very long time, which is a mistake. I think we'll talk about that later. But for me, I think it depends on what we were working on at that time. If we were fundraising and maybe be preparing a pitch deck, maybe I would be diagnosing a technical problem that we're having in the factory, talking to a new customer, strategizing about how to increase supply, working on procurement of either machinery, so trying to do some R&D on what kind of machinery we might need to add efficiency to our lines, or maybe looking at procuring raw material from neighboring countries or neighboring cities, and then general management as well, making sure others are on task.
Okay, great. Anybody else want to chime in? What is it? Similar firefighting? Does that resonate?
Well, to me, it feels that it doesn't feel like you are always working, but it feels like you are always working. Like, yeah, like you are an entrepreneur, you are like the owner of your time, but are we really the owners of our time? So it feels like that. Like, yeah, there is a passion involved and you want it to be as successful as you believe it can be. And that is the aspect that I find about like building something from the scratch, that if you don't believe it can become something huge, then why are you doing it? So in order to keep going, is you gotta believe in this project. So you gotta be ready to turn on fires.
Great. And I think, I think another question that a lot of students have is, what should they be learning to prepare themselves? And so for you all, maybe it's more retrospective, kind of, were there certain skill sets that Batten prepared you for that helped you get ready for this task? Maybe we'll go Simone and Cory first up. Is there certain things that you feel like that you had during your university time that you're really glad you did because it well prepared you for something? Or you can just put a spin on it and say, oh God, I wish I had taken accounting and I hadn't done that.
So I can tackle that first. So, I mean, there's obviously hard work, working a team, which is helpful, but biggest thing with Batten is the resourcefulness. You need to be successful. I don't think there's any secret. Probably wasn't the best student in my class, but I quickly realized there's a lot of people who had a lot of specific knowledge that's really useful for a lot of these assignments, projects, whatever you're interested in. So I find that, directly relates to entrepreneurship, where you're not going to know everything. You're time constrained. You need to find out who knows what information and get that information in an effective way. I find that to be one of the most useful parts of Batten, is that resourcefulness, knowing which classmates to talk to, which professors you should approach, what questions you should ask them. I found that to be, probably the most helpful part of Batten.
Okay, great. Simone?
Yeah, I think I would say something similar. One thing for me that I think has made me well suited to the entrepreneur life is that I am always working on many things. While I was in Batten, I was actually playing on the varsity women's basketball team, and the time management has never stopped. I actually have just lots of obligations, and folks are always asking, like, sort of, how do you handle everything? And I think the answer just comes down to being a really good time manager. And that was something I had to figure out really quickly when I decided to do grad school while also playing a sport.
Okay, great, great. I think that is really good advice. Maybe we'll hear from Aaron next and Logan. What do you like most about being a founder?
That is an outstanding question. I would say, at least for myself, what I enjoy most is probably really being able to, I guess Simone alluded to this earlier, but kind of be in charge of yourself, if that makes sense. I know that in general, so I also work in consulting, but like for my actual day job. And I mean, I'm okay with being told what to do, but in general, a lot of the time, the direction might be unclear, or leadership might be kind of cloudy around certain items. So I know for myself, what I like to be able to do is just be able to set like a clear strategic vision that I can actually like implement and execute on, where I don't really, I mean, I can obviously get input from other people, and I have a team of people that work with me, but it can really be something that's really clear and defined, as opposed to kind of murky and bureaucratic, which is where a lot of that kind of stuff happens in especially large consulting firms.
Okay, great. Logan?
Yeah, easy for me to say on a sunny blue sky day like this, but the forcing function of it's so easy and sometimes fun to tear things down, especially in hiring, where it's easy to point to mistakes that people make all the time. And I thankfully don't have the luxury of I can't point just to myself in the mirror and say, hey, you screwed that up. I have to then take that next step of, well, what are you going to do about it? You can't just poke the holes. You have to fill it and build it with something too. And so I like the natural sort of, I don't have to use willpower on, am I going to do something about this? It's just, for this to work at all, and for me to live up to my idea of being a founder and an entrepreneur and what that means, it means I have to actually do something.
That really resonates. I was on a panel and someone from Rockefeller was saying something similar. Like it's pretty easy to tell somebody what's wrong. It's a whole lot harder to come up with solutions and move forward. Maybe next up, Mimi and Rodrigo, what's the hardest part of being a founder?
I can go first. I think that, kind of touching on what Logan just said, but on it, is that at the end of the day, you're entirely responsible for your company, which means, you're responsible for all the business operations, for your people, for your investors, for your cash flow and the revenue stream, how you pivot out of difficult situations, how do you build the company culture, right? That's all you creating that, hopefully with the team as well. But at the end of the day, you do have that responsibility, and the weight of it can be really difficult to manage, actually. And I throw it out to everyone who's here to prove me wrong. I have yet to meet an entrepreneur who has figured out, how to really manage that responsibility. I think maybe some of it is in prioritizing rest and maintaining balance in your life, and focusing on the overarching vision of what you're doing and keeping that in perspective as well. But yeah, that's been the hardest part.
That makes a lot of sense. Rodrigo?
I could say, how can I say it? Knowing that you are not an octopus, knowing that you cannot do everything by yourself, trusting other people that they are on board with the project for a reason, and that they are going to do their best to make things happen. However, being prepared that you're the face of this project, so not pointing fingers, knowing that you have a responsibility with your investors, with the people that you are trying to give something back. But at the beginning, it was very difficult for me, that like feeling that there were other talented minds out there, and then it was just like, oh, it's impossible to find good talent, that type of vibe. But once you have your right hand and your left hand, then you start realizing that they their mindset brings new and fresh ideas, and having an open ear to continue building this project.
That's that's definitely something I wanted to ask about too. And maybe next I'll ask Simone, Aaron, and Logan based on, really the kind of work you're doing, which is there's the piece of like, what are the essential skills to be a successful founder? And so I'd like to hear you if you have ideas and chime in on that. But also since both Simone and Aaron and Logan, you are doing projects for other teams, right? And you are helping them build talent, and you have a finger on the pulse of, what do new workers coming out right now need? And Simone, especially your work, right? They probably always needed it, but there's a better understanding now of how important DEI and anti-racism skills are, right? And I think a lot of higher ed institutions still aren't doing a good job of teaching that, which is probably why you're helping higher ed institutions. But maybe we'll start with you. What are the skill sets that you think, like our students that are coming out on the market now, what are the skill sets they really need to succeed? Maybe in a startup scene, but really any team.
Yeah. I think the skill that I found the most useful in basically doing strategy consulting with an anti-racist lens has been to make strategic connections, to be able to look in at the whole picture of disjointed facts or figures or data and what have you, and be able to figure out what is the narrative here, what are the insights we need to take away, and then what are the things that we can act on in those insights, what are the levers we can pull to make this organization a more equitable place. I think I got that, the seeds definitely of that skill at Batten, figuring out, sort of what are the different factors that are leading to this reality, and how can we influence it or change it to better serve the folks at an organization or the folks who are going to be affected by a policy, what have you. Great.
Aaron, any thoughts on skills that the new generation of workers have to have?
Yeah, 100%. I would definitely say from a Batten standpoint, I know we did a lot of case studies, and I have found that those have been extremely helpful. So really putting yourself in a lot of different scenarios and understanding how to solve different types of problems. So like even like in our comparative policy class, where we would talk about the differences between like ancient China and like 21st century Nigeria, just being like able to have an imagination around being able to compare things, contrast things, and kind of like what Simone said, just bring a strategic mindset to things. That was a really important skill. And then the second one I would say would be really kind of listening to your stakeholders. I know in policy, a lot of the time they say the best policy is made by people who listen to the communities that they're making the policy for. So I know that for our work that we do, we really don't try and set the direction for what the project should look like. We let the people who are the experts in what they're doing set the direction. We kind of just facilitate what their vision is. So I think, I guess to answer your question, it's definitely a lot of case studies that you're in at Batten, but then also understanding from a policy perspective how you can engage with your stakeholders and really let them take the lead.
Logan, any other thoughts on that?
Yes, and how those formal skills matter, but how they get done. Like you said, Christine, it's about teams. And it's funny, 10 years ago, I would not have cited this, but some of the most valuable things were in we have this group project with 5 people and 2 people aren't pulling their weight, or I'm too busy, I'm not pulling my weight. How can I help this group? Like navigating those kinds of things are a lot of what startup life is like. The nice thing is you're not jaded when you're coming out and you have a lot of energy, even if you have a lot of work experience coming out of, say, a Batten program, and trying to keep and hold on to that kind of idealistic thing and that self-delusion, that positive self-delusion of like, yeah, I can do this thing and I can contribute to this team is really hard to hold on to when you hit the inevitable roadblocks of professional life or startup life.
Great. Yeah. And so much. Oh, Mimi, did you want to add in?
I did, but go ahead. I can come.
Oh no, go for it. Go for it.
Okay. I just wanted to share with everyone that, I started a plastic collection and recycling plant, but I don't have any engineering experience. I don't have any entrepreneurial experience. I actually was never entrepreneurial at all. And I want to just say, don't be afraid to pursue something, even if you don't know about it. And I think that the skills that are really important for anyone in both your professional and your personal life, like a few of them are like to be curious and remain teachable. I think that's what really led me to the landfill. Actually, it was just because I saw a garbage truck and I was like, hey, where does this go? I think it's really important to be persistent and to let go of your ego, because you're going to be rejected so many times in your life. And learning to brush that off, setting aside your fears, and really focus on your confidence, building your mindset. I think it's really important to be flexible and adaptable and resourceful, as so many of the panelists have already shared, and mastering your emotions and mastering communication, which that is a skill that you can actually learn. You can go to a class to figure out how to best communicate with people. And I keep stressing this because I've been running for 6 years, and honestly, actually, so there was a military coup in Myanmar in February 2021. And so we're actually in the process of exiting, but 6 years, I was so burned out. I came back to the US. Came back to the US and I moved to New York in September to do professional dance training, because I just thought, I want to do something fun. I have time right now to do it. And it was just such a cathartic experience to be physical and be creative. But so important is, really prioritizing rest for yourself, and well-being in your physical, mental, and emotional, because usually, especially in the beginning, you are the one who is leading the team and the company. You are the person who is setting the vision, pushing everything forward. And if you are not at your best, the company can't, go forward as much as you'd like it to. So it's so hard, I think, as a founder to say, hey, let me take a break, because you might even feel guilty, but you will be able to have the company run faster when you are well.
Yeah, I think that's incredibly, incredibly important advice. And one thing too, I'd love to ask you all about is, we talk about these ups and downs, right? You're often firefighting, especially for social entrepreneurs, right? If we're talking about climate change, plastic pollution, racism, these are hard issues as well. And so one thing that seems like it can help entrepreneurs and entrepreneurial teams get through those ups and downs is culture. And Cory, I wanted to ask you about this. I loved how on your website, it wasn't like glossy profile pics, but like the pictures of you all when you were in youth sports. It just seemed like, I don't know, it just seemed to give a little window into a really lovely culture and like maybe, a lightness around, even though it's hard work. So I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit about the culture of your company. Yeah. And how you try to foster that culture. And then I'd love to hear others chime in too, as they think about how are they kind of fostering the kind of culture they want to see at their organization.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, what, it all comes down to is working at startups really hard. So little things you can do to make it fun, make it enjoyable, build cohesion can go a really long way. And that's kind of what we pride ourselves on. We don't do the sexiest work. We do back office admin work for youth sports clubs. So you're in front of a software for 8 hours a day, plugging in data. So, it's really easy to get lost, really easy to feel isolated, really easy to get overwhelmed. So the little things you can do are, make sure you're constantly checking in on your teammates, establish a mission statement, create a broader vision of why you're doing what you're doing. Those are all pretty crucial. On the flip side of this, I will say is focus on culture at the right time. You definitely want to start earlier rather than later. I will say when it was a small team of just me and my partner, we had these grandiose ideas of our culture, what it was going to look like, as well as, other aspects of the business, branding, partnerships. It's almost comical when you look at it now, it's, two things you should focus on: providing the best service possible and acquiring new customers. So that's another piece of advice as well, is culture is extremely important, and you should start earlier rather than later, but focus on what's really important. And if you have the right values, that culture will build into itself within the company.
Great. Anybody else?
Yeah, I actually want to jump in on this one because the nature of our work, you know, anti-racism and sort of the conversations that come with doing that work, it is draining, I think, in ways other types of work might not be. It's really emotionally difficult and emotionally laborious work. So we actually have had a ton of conversations about our company culture and what that looks like in taking care of the whole person. And I think that we, again, because our work is very emotionally intense, we prioritize the whole person maybe more than the average person. Right now we have a team of 4 and we have a 4-day work week. We have a sabbatical program. So if you need to take leave for a certain amount of time, we're able to pay you partially a portion of your salary while you're taking that. We do fly all over the place to do our trainings and our work, and we have instituted 2 no-fly months. So July and December every year, like no matter what our clients ask, we don't travel. And we have, I'm trying to think what other things. That's created a culture wherein myself, my co-founder, and the 2 folks on our team, we are able to say to each other, how are you feeling? Are you able to do this work today? Are you taking care of yourself after this session? We really prioritize. I mean, quite frankly, when we're having 4-hour sessions with folks where about race and racism, like people have come up to us, they've accosted us, like it can get really intense. So after we have long all day sessions, we have well-being hours. Go take care of yourself, go do what you need to do. Today is, you know, a short day because it's been a long one. So that's just something that we really prioritize. And per what previous entrepreneur was just saying, putting that in early and modeling that as a founder is really important. I can't just say, go take well-being hours if I'm going to be working for 4 more hours, because the people who work for me are going to want to show that they are willing to do that too. So walking and talking and walking the walk.
Maybe too, Aaron, you know, since your team is more fluid, has it been hard to establish culture, or have you found ways to do that?
Yeah, it has definitely been difficult. I'd say what has been helpful for us is that we have a fairly kind of, I'd say, rigorous interview process where we have people come through a few rounds and we talk to them about both their interests and their schedule. So what's nice about an organization like ours is that because it is a volunteer organization, it's a very self-selecting group of people who want to join, which inevitably gives us a nice pool of people to draw from. But at the same time, we are all in lots of different locations and fully remote. So in general, it's kind of also difficult to really establish a consistent culture across lots of different types of people, went to different types of schools, and have, you know, different areas of expertise. So I would say yes and no in terms of that, the answer to that question, but definitely leaning towards saying that for us, it's definitely really about the fact that we can really draw from people who want to be there in the first place, which kind of the culture really takes off from there.
Okay, great. One thing I'd love to hear a bit about too, and this I think too for the students that are on the call and will listen later, it's often helpful for them to understand the kinds of organizations that support entrepreneurs. And so I was wondering if anybody participated in things like competition, like concept competitions, rounds of funding. You know, there's a lot of organizations, especially in the social enterprise space, like Echo and Green and Skull and Omidyar, that are kind of supporting with grants and then sometimes investment entrepreneurs. So I was wondering, are there organizations that have been helpful to you as you founded your organization, associations or conferences that you've gone to that you felt were really helpful for your work? Any organizations that really made your work a little easier?
I was selected for Cartier Women's Initiative as a fellow in 2021. And they actually, Cartier, which is the luxury jewelry brand, they host the largest female business competition in the world. And they select, my year was 24 female impact entrepreneurs from around the world. And they provide us with grants. coaching, financial coaching, communication coaching. They've done media for us. They sent us to INSEAD to do a social entrepreneurship program, which we just completed in Abu Dhabi in person in March, where we had a 15-year anniversary. And it's a lifetime community of support from its jury members, all of whom are committed to empowering women, providing, introductions to potential funders, and just general advice as well. They actually put together, they helped us write, if we were interested, a one-pager, and then compiled all of them and sent them out to, I think, 400 angel investors, which was really amazing. So this has been such a gift. Cartier Women's Initiative have been such a gift to me. And being in New York as well, their headquarters are here. So I just saw them actually last night for a documentary screening of Bernie Krause, who has recorded animal sounds for the past 50 years. And, they're really invested in supporting women, supporting climate, supporting philanthropy, but quite quiet about it. I've also been part of an accelerator called the Alliance to End Plastic Waste, which is a nonprofit really dedicated to supporting startups in who are mitigating the plastic pollution crisis. And being part of them has been great. Actually, I'm doing a few projects with the members, as well as some of the startups that were part of my cohort or part of another cohort within the accelerator, because there are multiple regions where it's been hosted. We were also part of a pilot project with the 3R Initiative, which launched the very first plastic credits global market, which is very much akin to the carbon credits. And so it's a nascent market that we're trying to develop. But basically having, huge companies like Coca-Cola help support companies like mine who are doing the collection, doing the recycling on the ground with financial support by buying credits, so that's been very powerful as well.
Yeah. Wonderful. Congratulations. Those are really exciting.
Thank you.
Other conferences or associations, funders that you found really helpful? One thing I'd love to hear too about, and maybe this one we'll do kind of a round robin again, is if you founded your organization today, is there anything you would do differently? So maybe we'll start off with Cory and we'll then go on to Simone.
Yeah, there's a lot. So naturally, as a service-based business, you're making a promise to a customer and then delivering on the back end. And one thing we found ourselves doing early is providing a lot of services to a lot of different types of customers. So starting off, I'd be more focused, more narrow in our scope of services, more narrow in terms of the customers we bring on, and then growing from there. And then I think I mentioned this earlier is, there's a couple key things, especially with what we do, is, focus on what really matters first, and then focus on all that ancillary stuff, partnerships, creating that, logo, brand, focus on that after. Focus, first figure out what that service is going to be. Is it going to provide value? Is it going to solve a problem? Then figure out your distribution. And then once you're able to get some traction, then, the rest of the stuff will follow. But long story short, we do a ton of things differently.
Okay, great. Thank you. I think that's really good advice, being focused when you start out. Simone, anything you'd do differently?
Yeah. My co-founder and I, we spent like 6 months on the strategy and ideation phase. So it wasn't so much like getting more organized and figuring out exactly what we were offering, but I think honestly, the thing I would have done differently is probably rested more in advance. Just like if I had known that I was going to be doing this, I probably would have caught up on like 2 years worth of sleep. So take care of yourselves before you jump into the startup life.
Mimi, anything you do differently?
Yeah. First, I would invest in a really strong team from the get-go. I think a lot of startups fail to do this in the beginning because we're all bootstrapping, but your people are your biggest multipliers. And it's really important to have a few people with initiative, technical competencies different from your own, and also people who can simply get the job done. I think it also goes, in Myanmar, there's a limited talent pool too, but I think it's really important to be searching as as well as you can for very strong people in your team. I would more quickly have the company less dependent on me as well. This goes back to having a really competent team. I would pay myself more because, especially with my co-founder, I think having that financial stress really takes a toll mentally and emotionally as well. So just take care of yourself, because you are making a lot of sacrifices, but you shouldn't be, really killing yourself, and not being able maybe to afford certain food, or even just to have fun. Sometimes you shouldn't feel like you need to sacrifice your entire life. And definitely echoing to rest more, and place more emphasis on my well-being throughout the entire 6 years of the journey.
Okay, great advice.
I would
next
also
up-
like to add,
Yeah.
keeping or trying to keep informed every new relationship that you're making, that is aware of your project. Meeting several years after you started from the scratch and being able to show that you're making changes, that you're progressing, and definitely being more organized. When you are younger, you have all this energy to try to do everything at once, and just making sure that you are able to measure where you are going, without just feeling that you are just always busy and doing stuff does help. Like you are like, oh, I was there, now I'm here, perhaps I can fix this or that. But there are several people that are just like, oh, how did I lose contact with that person? Now it's too late to
I think
connect.
Just adding on, this is a marathon, not a sprint. So that's really important to remember, right? And this is something that's going to take 8 to 10 years to build potentially. So it's something that you need to be dedicated to. But yeah, definitely it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Oh, I never run a marathon. I'll find out what that is about one day.
Maybe, what about you, Aaron? Anything you would have done differently?
Yeah, I'd say probably the one thing would be from a growth perspective, definitely trying to stay smaller before getting big too fast. I know for myself, it was definitely more difficult to manage a larger group of people as opposed to a smaller one. So I think that was probably it. And then in addition to that, really trying to identify the ways where you can read in between the lines and kind of be able to unify your organization in ways that you might not be thinking about. Like if you're always talking about work or always talking about what the direction is, etc. Really trying to find ways to actually bond people through other means as opposed to not just the work itself.
Great. Logan?
Yeah, I wish I had been brave enough to build in public a little bit more. It's always been a little of course it's the journey, and like Mimi eloquently said, this is a decade-long journey, but it's really hard to share the ugly, like this is the first version of my website, or like in Cory's case, like it's the first version of our service that we're going to provide. And because of being parts of strong communities like Batten and others, and being in the tech space, it is probably the safest space to come out and say, I have this fear, or I'm feeling the imposter syndrome. And it's always been hard for me to share that, and probably would have made more progress, because I know there'd be people willing to help if I had shared some of those things that were keeping me up at night.
Really good advice. I want to create an opportunity too for some of our guests to ask questions. Is there any questions out there in the Zoom room?
I'll ask one.
Okay, go for it.
Yeah, I guess my question is, how do you all define success for your companies? I feel like a lot of times the obvious answer is in a financial sense, hitting a certain revenue target or whatnot, but I'm sure you all have different answers for that as well.
Yeah, I think it's really important if you're going into entrepreneurship to make money, I don't think that's well, me personally, I don't think that's the right approach. I don't know about everyone else, but I don't feel like often people become entrepreneurs to make money. They become entrepreneurs because they see a challenge in the world, a problem in the world that they really want to solve. And they think that they have a great solution and are willing to try it and iterate if it doesn't work. So that's probably, yeah. And happy for everyone else to chime in as well. But definitely, for us, we're an impact driven business. We're for profit, but I very much measure success on the kind of impact that we're making. How many, like tangibly, how many kilograms, tons of plastic are we collecting and recycling? How many people are we directly employing, right? And then kind of more, I guess, how many people are we empowering? You know, what kind of policies are we going to be able to change? How many brands are we going to be able to get on board to make changes in their packaging? Right. So it becomes more than just the business and the service and product that you're making, but how can you connect with the ecosystem of the problem that you're trying to solve and really be influential there?
Anybody else? Thoughts on success that other than money?
Well, yes. I think it's a combination of, it's a pool of different factors. Yes, one, it's important to know that you're changing people's lives, like you're doing something good. Two, when you realize you are not married 24/7 for this project and that is running, even if you like step back a little bit, becoming a little bit the owner of your time. And you can only think that that's successful if you can deliver this job from anywhere else and anywhere you are in this planet. Like even if you are in Myanmar, in the States, or in Mexico, that the project has not died because you are not physically there to solve that problem. And at the end of the day, when you believe in this project that is gonna do something good, the income it has to come. It has to come. And I do believe that it is a very important aspect, the income, the amount of sponsors you get, the amount of money that is out there to continue to grow this project. Because if you don't see the revenue growing, then you are kind of stuck. And if you're just like against a wall, then I don't think you can count as being a success. It's always making sure that there is another step to go ahead to make this bigger.
And somebody who's exiting as well, I mean, I think so much of us wrap up our identities and with our company, with our titles, with the successes and highs and lows. And so it was really hard for me to step away, and just because of the coup, I couldn't really do, you know, it's really out of my control, but I still felt so disappointed in myself. And I think success is also the growth that you have in yourself from the experience, you know, all the skills that you learn, the experience that you have, and with the mission in mind to, you know, your business, your company as it exists right now, maybe it won't always exist, but the mission still lives on in you, and for you to use that as a stepping stone to maybe build another company or to help inform the world about, you know, what the mission that you had, and support it in a different way.
And Simone and Aaron, how do you think about, you know, success is one word for it. For me, I feel like it's so tied up with impact, because I was like, you know, great impact is obviously success. So maybe it would be really interesting to hear how your organizations both measure impact internally and maybe how you communicate that to potential clients externally.
Yeah, I guess I can go first. So I guess for our organization, it definitely is around kind of the reaction or feedback we get from the clients themselves. So In general, it's funny because I guess it's maybe a low bar, but a lot of the time nonprofits are just kind of happy to get free help in the first place. I know even for like even a place like Deloitte, for example, will make you pay like $100,000 to $250,000 for like helping define your strategic direction, and then they'll give you like 2 pieces of paper that isn't really that helpful and isn't really going to do a lot, and you're basically not really actually moving the needle at all. But I know for us, we try to get the volunteers that would work at those types of places, but just do it for free. And I think at the end of the day, what we see success as is a nonprofit coming back to us and saying, like, we were able to find this funding resource. We were able to actually, like, network with these people, or we've gotten more traffic for our website. So I think at the end of the day, it's really just any marginal amount of help that we can provide a nonprofit that they could not do before because of their capacity or because of whatever host of issues that a lot of nonprofits face. That I think is success to us. And also at the same time, from our perspective in terms of professional development, success for us really looks like people feeling as though that they've benefited from their time in our organization. So they feel as though they're now a better leader because they led a project. They feel as though now that they have more skills and capabilities to hone in and use for other nonprofits that they want to work at in the future, or down the line. Because at the end of the day, we are a lot of early kind of career professionals who are going to unfortunately probably be having to work for a long time. So definitely important to really try and see how we can build out and round out our skill set as we continue to move forward.
Great.
Yeah. I think our work being really hearts and minds work, a lot of our impact comes from folks that we've worked with. The bread and butter of what we do is like a year-long anti-racism training. And some of the best feedback I've gotten has been from, we run this training with students and teachers simultaneously, depending. Some of the best feedback I've gotten has been from students and teachers who say things like, they feel like after our training, their school was a safer space, or they were more able to say what was on their mind. And even just being in some trainings and watching other teachers sort of call each other out on, problematic things that we've been working on throughout the year, that's really satisfying. And some of the best indirect feedback I think you can get. When it comes to measuring that for other clients, more often than not, it's testimonials. We're sending people references. We're sending them to talk to people who we've done trainings with who feel that it's been positive impact. We're still figuring out what exactly our quantitative measures are going to be. There are some school culture measures like suspension rates and things of that nature, but I think those are problematic for different reasons. We could get all into the system of education and how it's too punitive, but I don't think we have enough time today. So that's where we are leaving it for now.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any other questions out there from our participants and audience, Zoom room?
I have a question for the panelists. We've heard a lot about like what you've learned over time. Maybe more on like a lighter short note. What's been your favorite memory or day as a founder throughout it all? Like what really like made you be like, man, I am really happy I'm doing this.
I love working with myself. So any day I get to decide my own schedule, which is most of them, is a great win.
I love that. I agree. I know, at least for myself, one particular memory, and Hannah actually might know about this one, but we were working with this nonprofit based out of Chicago that helps young Black artists break into the music industry. And I just remember when on our last day, kind of signing off with them, I just remember that they were just so we gave them like this list of like 50 to 100 just like resources for them to find funding. And I remember them being so shocked that we actually followed through on what we told them they were going to do. I feel like that to me is that they were just so humble in the way they approached us and the way that they were engaging with us. Just in general, I often, to be honest with you, find that people who are in nonprofits or lead nonprofits are some of the best people you can find. And I just remember that was like a truly like awesome moment for me, being able to see someone be like truly humble and being able to receive support and really enjoying and being satisfied by what the result that we were able to deliver. So yeah, definitely a great memory there.
I think it's really gratifying to see just how supportive the community is of founders, right? That's been almost the coolest part for me, is reaching out to people in my network. You're kind of going out trying to start something really hard. You have a lot of questions. I'm just figuring this out. We're running around like chickens with our heads cut off. The amount of people that'll lend a ear, be a sounding board, take time out of their day, make connections with someone who may be able to help you with the problem you're having, has just been really the greatest part for me. And even connecting with people on a deeper level, hearing about their problems, and then applying to our own situation, folks on the field, has been fantastic. So just really grateful, and it's been really eye-opening just to see how supportive people are, founders, and what they're going through and the problem they're trying to solve.
Yeah, I have to echo with Cory. I mean, I think building the community or finding the community, Cartier I mentioned, but all the ecosystem of entrepreneurs in Myanmar, people who are waste entrepreneurs around the world that I've been connected to. There's so many of us who are committed to solving the plastic pollution crisis, and that's been really lovely. And I'm still connected with them and building upon what I did at Myanmar Recycles with new projects right now, and that's really exciting.
All right. Well, we're right up to the end of our time together. I want to say a giant thank you to all of our entrepreneurs for taking the time to talk with us, but also for the work you're doing. It's super inspiring, and I hope that some of our students out there are inspired to have that bias toward action that Logan talks about and start something. Hannah, any other sign-offs, or should we just do a big round of applause?
I want to say thank you too. Loved hearing from all of you, and hopefully the discussion continues and this isn't the last time everyone here talks. So thank you again, everybody.
Thank you all, and everybody
you.
connect with everybody on LinkedIn.
Yeah, great to see everybody.
Thanks,
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks, y'all.
Yeah.